Welcome, Brandon. Right, I gotta say, I'm super excited. I bumped into you on Instagram, and I was like, I seem to have this hazy recollection of some strange 90s punk rock experience and some strange characters in and around the time. And I was like, I was having these kind of flashbacks to my youth. So, Brandon Parkhurst of previous fames in punk rock band Cut You Up, and now in Yogi, is it? As well.
That's right. Yeah.
I also
Yep.
know you from Rock to Recovery. What
Yep.
drew me to you is your playfulness. So I understand now that you are sober and you've got lots of interesting things going on that we're going to touch on. But I wanted to kind of really let people know that you have this approach to life that, in all its kind of scholarly intricacies and the work that you've done and the practices that you've carried out, you've managed to maintain this apparent joy of the chaos and the playfulness of like life and existence itself. Can you like elaborate on that without becoming too self-aware?
Finally, somebody sees me. No, it feels so good. What a great, I didn't go about it. I didn't go head out in my life to do that, but you just said it so great in such a great way. And, what's the point? You know what I mean? If we're taking it too seriously, you know what I mean? It's like, we don't even know where is Earth in the solar system, and we don't even know where we are. So it's like, starting with that, it's like, it's just some kind of crazy joke or whatever. But, the main thing is what I was taught in my schooling was to be unafraid of knowing any part of myself. That's the goal. And what that means is like, can you hear that? Is that, yeah, is that I know where my pleasure is. I know where my anger is. I know where my rage is. I know where my fear is, where my anxiety is, where I can kill you, where I can help you. You know what I mean? All of those things, right? And I think that when we are, I'm far from perfect with it. It's a life's work. But I think what happens is when we really embody and explore all of our parts of ourselves, then we're not as triggered, and we're kind of like feel like I'm kind of in a place where it's like, so for instance, if I don't know where my anger is and my rage is or my anxiety, and it's just eating at me, then I'm going to be scared, and I'm going to be serious, and I'm going to be dominated by it. Right. So there's some easy well-being that comes with knowing what's happening for me in situations, and so like the dominant trait or the dominant personality pattern that I'll run is going to be just well-being. Like, fuck, okay, I've been, it's like, that's scary to me. I don't know what that is. I'm scared of this thing, but fuck, I know I'm scared of it, and I've been through fear before. So it's like, okay, let's go towards it, and let's bring it into the consciousness in the sphere in order to embody it and welcome everything, and in an authentic way, not a bypass way. That's another problem that we see kind of in the world, is like people want to have that way of outlook at the world without actually facing the dark parts of themselves. And what ends up happening is it comes out kind of fake, and that's okay. I'm not sitting here trying to judge that, but I'm saying like, listen, I didn't invent this to teach the women that I work, mainly the school I went to. I'll tell you more about it, but was run by very powerful women. And they had this way of carrying themselves that everything was okay, like welcoming everything, just welcome it and be with it, and just no shame, a non-shaming heart, like just be what it is. Don't shame yourself. Make mistakes, fuck up, like laugh at, you know what I mean? Like this way that I just was like, oh my gosh, I really want that. I want to embody that. And It's not something you could read out of a book, you know? So it's like this, you know, I've been through the dark night of the soul in a way, and think about getting through the dark night of the soul. It's like, I'm so far from being like this. And I follow all these yogis and everyone, they're kind of, the Buddha was naturally, because he went through his dark night of his soul, everything. He's like, this is a fucking or freaking dream we're in. Don't take it too seriously. Just chill. So there's a long answer to you.
No, I really like that. And what I picked up on there was just something about the women saying to you about not having any shame. That's something that a lot of us can relate to, of having experienced in our childhoods on one level or another, and how I just find that fascinating that that's where they came in, you know.
Well, yeah.
Related to playfulness is because that moment when you feel like you weren't accepted or your motives were questioned is such a paramount moment for a lot of us. We're like, am I not okay to be me here? You know,
yeah,
we're out there kind of questioning why we're here anyway, I think naturally as a child. So like, I think that's fascinating that the first thing, that the main message was, no, you are accepted, you know, please. And then to give you permission to go, like you say, into all those tiny little crevices and go, okay, maybe that does need a sweep out, you know, but then it's on your terms rather than someone going, hey, you know, kind of thing.
Totally. Yeah. It's like the only problem that really, I mean, when I work with my clients, you know, like the main thing that I really promote is like, there's nothing wrong with you. The only thing really that could be considered wrong with you is that you judge yourself. You know what I mean? And it's like, whoa, it's like, because it's like, at what point are we going to accept what is coming through us? You know what I mean? Like, and when we judge ourselves, we didn't come into human form just as a little baby judging each other. We were actually super free and like feeling all this shit. So we had to learn it from somebody. And generally, you know, not to diss our caregivers or our people who brought us up, because they're just doing the best they could. But, you know, they taught us this, you know what I mean? And the reason why the shame comes and the judgment comes from our caregivers is because they haven't been supported in their own darkness or their own shadow. It's not always dark. You know this already. You already know, but for anyone who's listening, like shadow or when I talk about the darkness, it's not like evil or bad. It's just a place inside of us that's been hidden, right? That we weren't allowed to, that we weren't supported in. And it's different for everybody. Some people can be raised where where like you weren't allowed to have fun in your household. So that becomes your shadow. So the hidden part of you is the fun and the pleasure. Some people were not allowed to be angry or talk back or have anger. So that becomes your shadow. So, you know, our parents are not wanting, our caregivers, generally, there's something they don't want to feel. So they judge or they shame. Don't be that. All right. And if you think about a child, the first time we have our first uncomfortable feeling, right? We don't know how to process. Just go, that didn't feel good. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to do this, right? Even though I really liked that, and that's what I was authentically wanting to bring to the world, but it didn't get seen or it got hurt or shamed or shut down, boom, it goes over there. So when I go into doing my work in school with these women and men, you know, there's some masculinity. For one reason or another, this school was based around solid feminine energy, and I had to go find my masculine energy somewhere else. But anyways, it was so refreshing to have these people who had experienced their darkness in their place, and just what the no shame really provides, like you said, it is just safety. we can't heal in an environment that doesn't feel safe, you know. So,
and I wanted to kind of talk about your coaching as well, obviously, because you're a phenomenal coach and it's rooted in that. But when another thing that I am acutely aware of you, and I think that you can look at this in the macro and the microcosm in interpersonal relationships. I'm going to talk about social and cultural issues in a bit, or ask you questions about that. But what I find fascinating about the way that you work as well, that isn't similar to yoga studios, are starting to catch on and create spaces like this, but the way that you traverse um, the unknowns of consciousness and possibility with fundamental grounding in practice and real life experience. And you seem to move between that really well, so much so that it like you feel that you're representing that connection, which I think a lot of people who are into self inquiry or into psychology or just coming to a moment in their life when they're starting to look at things may end up in one space or in another, and they find it very, the most complicated part for them is uniting the two. So can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah. What's the two spaces again? But just say that one more time. I'm trying to.
Like consciousness, meditation, and those
Right.
kind of practices, and then kind of the creative manifestation process of music and just getting out there and doing a gig, for example.
Yeah, totally. So kind of like, I like to call that real world action. You mean like the difference between staying at home and sitting in your room and meditating and then actually bringing it to the world and doing it? Yeah, totally. Um, uh, well, we call that our edge, actually. It's like everybody has an edge, right? The edge is like, it's the place where it's fun to talk about it and fun to read the book and get the knowledge and kind of have the meditation experience, but not really go out in the world and do anything. But that's my edge. Like, I'm not going there. It was exactly where we want to go, you know? And I like to use the analogy. You see so many people like, you know, on a race car, like a race car. Like, imagine if you were building a race car for yourself and there's a big track. This track goes in a circle. In the middle is the garage, and you're in there, and like the meditation and the reading and all the stuff you do in your house and all the self-help is when you're building your car. You're like, great, and now the car's done. Like, you can keep fucking shining it and keep adding new little things on, but at some point you gotta hit the track. You know what I mean? And like hit the track and make some mistakes, and you're going to hit the wall. It's going to break down. Someone's going to pat. You're going to, you know, I mean, so many things are going to go wrong. But, you know, the first thing you're doing is you're experiencing the fruits of your discipline and your labor. You're like, whoa, now the rubber hits the road. And then the next thing is you're going to get better. You're going to come back. You can come back in that garage. You can come back in there and be like, dude, the tires were a little, okay, I'm going to do this. And then it's like, okay, but go back out again. And, you know, it's like, I don't know. It's just, that's the big battle is like, you know, we call it, we'll do workshops over like 7 days and people will do all this work. And then it's like, okay, what are you willing to commit to the group? You know what I mean? Like, what do you just did all this stuff. And then people are like, what? Like, I don't, okay, I guess I'll do, it's like this whole different idea of like, you know, am I really going to do it?
I really like
so,
it because I would say that first off, I think we all know that feeling. I was laughing because I was like, yeah, when you reach the end of the workshop and they're like, can you just write in here now some accountability? You find them like kind of repelling. Like, tonight. But you mentioned two words there that I really liked. One was kind of discipline. And the other one was one I picked up on kind of in what you were saying was the persistence. That's where like having regular practices comes in. So just a one-stop shop. This is like a regular thing you have to put into your life.
Yeah, it's a really touchy area because what can happen is if you get in the area, just like with disciplines, what can happen is you can get in the area, or one can, or I can get in the area of just checking boxes, right? It's like, okay, now I meditate. Okay, timer 20 minutes. Okay, now I'm going to journal. Okay, now I'm going to do my ice bath. And it's like, I'm not even, you know, present. So I'm not even really, so that could happen too. And then, you know, and then if you are present with it, you're actually feeling all the stuff and you're like, I don't want to do that. So it's like this hard, you know, in between medium, not to mention these things, you don't really see results immediately. Like, it's like, it's really subtle. You know, the work that the disciplines I do are very subtle. They're making me have to be with myself and feel myself. But one thing that I really have learned is that, and this is like kind of, they talk about it in recovery too, is I have accountability buddies. You know what I mean? I have buddies that I check in with every day, and we have these checklists, and we check in. And without that, you know, I think that, I think it's totally possible. I think everybody deals with things in different ways. I don't know, but for me, it helps to be connected to some other people that the like-minded idea that we're holding each other accountable, we're calling each other out, and it's pretty intensive. It's like, fuck, you know, at the end of the night, I'm like, and then I'm doing my thing and I'm checking it and I'm sending them their stuff, you know? So, but yeah, you know, it's like, and you know, here's the other thing too. It doesn't matter. So if anyone's doing it for some like advancement in like that you're a better person or whatever, like to me, that's all bullshit. I don't think that the universe just gives us what we want. You know, that's a huge rabbit hole to go down. I believe that we're doing reincarnate, like we're coming back and we're kind of learning. So I choose to advance my soul this time because I want to keep progressing, but there's no judgment. Like if I don't, or if I do, or whatever, it's like this, back to the judging ourselves, right? It's just like, it doesn't matter. It's like my clients, it's like, I don't care. And I don't think the universe cares if you do this. So just take that pressure off of you right now. What do you want to do? You know what I mean? You know, so it makes the discipline a lot easier. I want to have the deepest experience of myself. So I do these disciplines to get to know myself on a deeper level. And when I do those things, I see the world through a lens in a deeper, more meaningful way. You know what I mean? So that can easily go sidetracked and go, I just meditate a lot. And like, it's like, I do that because I'm like literally see the world in its matrix. And I go, wow, man, I can really feel where all this work on myself, I'm seeing the world play out in a whole different dynamic than I've ever had, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And what I find fascinating about even within those practices is that, you know, like you just said, you can maybe one moment be seeing all these particular things where it feels very open and wide and galactic and HD, and then you have these more refined kind of pinprick motions where it's more concentrated and it feels more laser like in its intention. And I always find that those things are quite interesting to me when I'm looking at different practices. Just because you were saying about discipline, like how within discipline there is all these complexities and entanglements that one can even go into within that, as long as you're present, you know, it's the deep dive into that and then moving and shifting. I find that really interesting.
Well, yeah. So like one other thing that comes up when you say that is really cool is that, you know, as far as that doing your work and then bringing it to the world, it's just like, that is how the universe works. It's always expanding and contracting. You know this already. So it's like, you know, and so the expansion is in the world, right? Like that is the expansion. And so many times that people are like, I'm depressed or I'm anxious. Well, they're just contracting. They're just contracted. So if I'm doing my internal work inside my house and this and that, that's a contraction. And then I want to get out in the world and make some mistakes. And that's an expansion. And essentially the expansion is we're just gathering information to bring back to the next contraction. So you can see how not letting that process flow, that ebb and flow of it, and just trusting and just being, I mean, I have my bad 3 days in a row where I'm like, oh, I'm processing information. You know what I mean? There's something happening to me. And I'm never going to be able to process it if I'm judging myself and I'm saying I'm depressed or whatever. I'm just contracting. So I need to get this information in and then bring it back out in the world and bring, you know, yeah.
That's really, that's really interesting. I think as well, you can look at kind of, I lost my train of thought there for a second. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Labeling. So I think this goes back to your coaching thing as well. This goes back to being labeled in a particular way, because you made a really interesting point there. And I think we need to be mindful of this, particularly, you know, with our interpersonal relationships, particularly as you get closer to somebody, you can start deciding that they are a particular way. Whereas if you're watching for things. They may even be saying to themselves, I'm an introvert, but you can see elements that, you know, have something else to them, but maybe they were told they were an introvert. And it's kind of this way of like psychologically labeling people.
Totally.
Really got into the habit of doing of late that what you've just said to me is just allows for so much more. Look, this is just the cyclical thing that is happening right now. And I'm
Yeah.
just in this particular spiral cycle, and then it will move, shift, and change. And as you know, you are grounded in practice or whatever, you can start to trust the process. But also, it'd be nice if we would kind of extend that out to others and kind of go, do you know what? Maybe you don't know, you know, and it's okay that you don't where they are in their cycle.
100%. Yeah. That's like the actual people are like, well, how do I stop judging myself? Well, stop labeling people, stop judging other people. Like in part of my schooling, one of the, I went to school for 6 freaking years, but one of the, they would always have us go out in the world and do stuff. They'd go walk through the mall, I don't know what you guys call it there, but the mall, whatever. Yeah. And just see people and notice the first label or judgment you have of the person, right? You're like, look at that guy. He's like, he can't even. Oh my God, is she really wearing? And you're just like, I'm not even. It's like I'm not consciously saying these things. You know what I mean? They're coming from like some deeper, you know. I'm like, so I'm able to see my observer observing that, but it's like if my observer is not observing that, I'm just lost in these. I'm just like, and then think about if I'm doing that to them, I'm doing that to me too, with every little thing I do. You know, so. Yeah, live and let live, man. That's just like there's so I could just talk forever. This is what's happening in the world. You have all these people that are so traumatized and that don't want to feel their emotions. So they're like saviors of the world. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm going to save the world and I'm righteous and you're bad and you're wrong and all that. It's just like, no, no, you probably just have a lot of trauma inside of you. And before you save the world, why don't you try and learn how to feel your own emotions and then maybe bring them to your family and then your close friends and then by default the world. So if you ever hear people yelling that the world is this way and it's wrong, then they probably are at war inside of themselves, you know?
Yeah. And
it's
also,
like,
I think, you know, what we've noticed of late, which so many of us are onto. So I'm not worried, right? First off, I'm like, there's too many switching. There's the switching of the on happening, right? But what's really interesting is this kind of just labeling on into the point where we are becoming like algorithms ourselves if we're not careful. There's a lot of filing going on, and this has got to go in this, and this has got to go in this. And it's how, as you were saying, just opening up to nuance and complexity and gray, you know, and the liberating feeling that comes with that. And how, you know, at first you might get told, like, don't listen so much to news and don't listen so much to that. And I totally agree with a lot of those principles for some people at any particular time. But what I started to notice was, I've been doing this a while now, never really engaging. And I don't hear it anymore, Brandon, even if it's kind of on. I wouldn't listen to like a lot of stuff all of the time because you never know if it's being a bit sneaky geeky.
Yeah.
I don't really hear it anymore. I think that once you've started tapping into like the nuance, so I'd like you to talk about that because I think you are meeting with a lot of people who are maybe going through trauma more so than I am. So how does one move out of the black and white thinking, or how does one not get enticed back in, and how does one stay safe in complexity and nuance from your perspective?
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Well,
It's crazy out there.
well, generally the first step is to own what's happening inside of yourself when you watch this stuff. So, most people will be like, Donald Trump or Joe Biden or whatever the news or whatever. I can't believe he's doing. Look at that guy. It's like, okay, so you're obviously triggered, right? Well, why shouldn't I? I mean, look, okay, well, okay, just I hear that. Okay, let's just what is it like? So when somebody, what is he doing? So when we could just use Trump. Well, he's a fucking asshole and he's abusive and okay. So when somebody's abusive and when somebody is arrogant, then what happens for you? Well, just in that moment, the person will just get mellower. It's like, oh, well, it makes me angry. It makes okay. So you have anger. Okay, so you like what is like let's just like it's just constantly bringing it back to the person, right? You know what I mean? It's like if you are being charged, if you feel charged from anything outside of yourself, it's unprocessed traumas inside of yourself, right? It doesn't mean you have to sit there and listen to the person that's pissing you off. It means you can make a grounded decision, right, of whether or not I want to be part of it. So people are caught up in the world. And I was one of them kind of when COVID started and I had to do all this work. I'm like, what is it? And then some people like the war. They like the confrontation. So it's like ownership of what's happening inside of myself. And if I can look at that, then I can go, oh, well, geez, he reminds me of my abusive dad. Or that Tucker or whatever, CNN. I don't trust CNN. I don't trust them. So my fucking mom totally like betrayed me when I was young. It's the same energy. And then I start working on that. And as I start to work on that, then I go, what is it even on? I don't even know if it's on anymore. It's not triggering me anymore. I'm not getting anything out of it anymore. So we always want to mirror. We always want to, at least for me, I'm always, whenever something's comes, I'm always trying to bring it back to myself. What is this bringing up in me? Like the biggest losing battle in humanity is the battle of trying to control our external reality to make our internal reality feel good. It will never happen. And then, so what you're talking about is like, you're not hearing it anymore. Well, there's something to be said about it just not, I mean, that's all, it's all lies. It's all these labeling and all these fightings, all these things going on are all based in unprocessed trauma. So there is something to be said about finally you're like, I don't know. But also it's like, you look deeper into it and everything's vibrant. Everything's like vibrating and attracting all these different vibrations. So if I'm in an unprocessed place inside of me where I don't know about my anger and fear and rage, and I watch the world play out that is literally happening to try and trigger the fear inside of me, it's gonna get me until I feel that place, until I process that place. And then it goes away. It's the same with addiction. It's the same with anything so. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That makes total sense. And what would you say around, I get triggered. I'm sure we all get triggered. And sometimes it's really obvious and it's like, okay, hello, my old friend. Like, what am I going to do? Am I going to bolt? Am I going to write an angry email? Like, what's going to happen here? And sometimes it's a little bit more sneaky. Mm-hmm. I really want to get into what fascinates me is like how people learn to trust themselves and how that relationship works. So that going back to what you were saying about shame and things like this, that it's, sometimes we get on these so-called spiritual journeys and we want to look a particular way. And when we don't, we really dig our heels in, like the virtuous signaling. But it's not just to others, it's to ourselves. Like all of a sudden, it's like, well, I've spent years working on this, so surely this isn't happening. But I want to go a little bit deeper and say, how do you open up to really trust yourself so you go, it's okay that you are jealous right now. Look, like you
Yeah.
still are. It's been 20 years and there you are, you know, like really like suffering with this thing inside of yourself. How do you work on trust so that you can kind of confront those issues?
Yeah. Well, just for me personally, there's all kinds of modalities. You know, mine that I've been on a went on a big search, but landed in, I'm very happy with, is more somatic healing, which is my experience is that you have the mental, like if you go to psychotherapy, you're working from the neck up, right? And that's great. Go ahead and do that. What I'm really passionate about is from the neck down. And when I started to make that switch, and because what happens is that if you're going to work on your jealousy or anything in your mind, it's like what, you know, it's like you can do that and then maybe right. Or my experience is when you bring the jealousy in the body and go, am I allowed to cuss or should we not cuss?
Yes, we'll say it's
Yeah. When I go, you motherfucker, I can't believe you did that to me. Yeah, you know, and just like move this energy in the body, like, and just see where it wants to go. And just like, you know, it's like bring it all the way. Like I'm so, and you know, when I work with people, I'm like, if you're not into that, then you should find somebody else to work with. Because what I'm into is like the like, you know, I want to heal and I'm not looking to put a band-aid on anything. You can do that. Go ahead. I want to get to the root of it. And so would you use your jealousy one? So something comes up, oh, I've done so much work surrounding this jealousy. Why am I still jealous? Right? Why? Judgment, first of all. Like, you know when you're supposed to drop it, so that right there is never going to let you process it because you're judging it. Why haven't I done all this? I can't believe I'm still at. It's like, yeah, your judgment. So you just let it be and then find I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen the work we do, but we hit and we kick and we yell. But if you're alone, you know, grab a pillow and go, I fucking hate that he's with this other woman. You know what I mean? Like, really let yourself have all the way. See what's underneath it. You know what I mean? There's probably, I have a longing. If you take any resentment and reverse it, it's a longing. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a longing there that we don't want to own. Instead, we just want to be angry, right? So it's like move the energy of the rage, maybe for the rest of your life. Let it be if it's there. Accept that it might be there the rest of your life, or whatever. It probably won't. But if you accept that, you trust that it's what it is, then you know, that's one thing. What will happen is that you're learning, if you want to trust yourself, you want to trust what's coming through your body, right? And to not judge it. And then what will happen is that we're like trusting that I'm not running, you know what I mean? That I'm willing to, like I said, to feel all these things. And then a good piece of information to know about how we ended up in a place where we can't trust ourselves or we bypass everything is that back in the day, like, you know, hundreds, 500, whatever, tribal, right? When you lived in a tribe like Native Americans or whatever, the Vikings or whatever the heck it was, I mean, they were brute. So if you look at nature, right? So you're like, look at that amazing little deer right there. That's amazing. And they're like, oh, it just got eaten by a wolf. Oh my. So you're like, you saw the beauty and then you're seeing the brutalness. And the deer isn't like, oh my God, I can't believe you just bit me. You know what I mean? It's not complaining. It's like there's this natural like flow to nature, and we put a label on it, we put a judgment on it. So anyways, what happens is you have humans living in this nature, very integrated and very willing to fight the neighboring tribe and give him props and die in a whatever way, and then we get more and more civilized. But at some point humankind got to a place where we took this brutal part of nature and created the devil or some external thing, right? We go, oh, now we're not going to own this part of ourselves. We're going to make it outside of ourselves. And if you act that way, then you're bad. And us higher versions or these ultimate enlightened people are going to punish you. So this is where we humans started to lose the ownership of the shadow. And so when you get jealous now, we've been trained for so many years that it's bad or it's wrong. And so we avoid it and we pretend like it's not there. We sidetrack. So in order to trust ourselves, we have to go back and understand that it is part of us and to own it all the way and to let the energy come through and see what's underneath it. That jealousy is a surface problem to a deeper injury or deeper wound, you know? Does any of that make sense?
Yeah, that's fascinating. And it kind of makes me think of, you know, the Bhagavad Gita, and then the more complex kind of the Mahabharata, just all the characters within that and how they're all going through their own struggle, but, you know, but they go into it. They
Yeah,
go into it.
it's
like,
so.
but I'm going to be nice. I'm going to go and have
Yeah.
It's like, no, hi, I'm Beamer, and I like go about bashing stuff, and like that's
Right. Well, I mean, it's in us. We're freaking, yeah, we're slightly evolved apes, you know? And you'll hear that sometimes too. It's like, you know, you've ever heard there's too much war in the Bhagavad Gita. I'm like, well, dude, that's an internal war that you're in right now. So, you know, so we can't trust ourselves, I don't think, until we trust what's coming through us and let it be there and to accept it and to, you know, take the responsibility to be around people that are gonna, like, it's your response, it's my responsibility, it's your responsibility. If you want to learn to trust yourself and let things come through, to surround yourself with an environment that is cohesive to that. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so.
That's beautiful.
And what happens is that if you get around people that are willing to do that, then, and they're willing to let you be what you are, and you're willing to let them be what they are, then it's just like, then whatever wants to come through comes through, you know. And you don't want to hurt people's feelings or whatever, but, you know, there's gonna be, I always tell people, when we start doing our deeper emotional intelligence work, it's going to get messier before it gets better, right? Because we've either spent our whole life holding our emotions or just freaking projecting them. So there's a way where, for people who have held their emotions their whole life, they're going to start experimenting with speaking their truth and saying what's happening for them. I'm jealous of this thing, or you're going to hurt people's feelings. You're never going to land right in the perfect spot. So, you know, another way we're going to trust ourselves is to know we're willing to take the risk and we're going to say sorry, or, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm going to let happen what needs to happen for myself.
And I think that's what people like you in kind of places like social media, this is why you do such a good job just by being there, is that, you know, the more people we have around in those kind of spaces where it's okay to kind of be learning to walk again, like you say, just like, I'm learning to do this thing right now. I'm learning to feel comfortable with the female voice, but it's not always going to look like perfection. It's learning. We're learning. So that allowance, it would be so nice if there was a lot of buoyancy in that. And we could go, but you know what? That person's learning. Clearly, like, that's their like 25th tweet, and they'll get there, you know, and it's just all chill out. But yeah.
Yeah, live and let live.
Yeah.
You know, it's like such a thing just to, like, yeah, again, I just learned that so much in school, living that, like, it was almost like I was a little kid. I mean, like, looking back, I can see how, there's men teachers, but they just were like, they knew so much more that they could have said to help me, but they didn't say it. It was like, okay, yeah, you just be your little angry self, you know what I mean? Okay, you know what I mean? Like, didn't go, here's what's happening for you, you know, just like letting me just make a mess and just like, and then just rise up on my own, like, you know, just essentially held the container, you know, yeah, powerful stuff.
We are not going to be able to get through this without obviously talking about music.
Oh yeah, I love music. Right. I saw the fly. You see the fly just flew over.
Okay, music. So you're still doing this punk rock thing, but you also have Yogi, and obviously, okay, I'm not going to talk about I've got several questions, but I want to talk about, isn't this a prime example right here? That you've got like these things happening that are different, and then you manage to conjure up not only the aspect of yourself that is comfortable in those situations, but also giving rise to the creativity of it and the chaos in it. Are you just having the best time right now, like just really just shining yourself all over the place?
Yeah, I am. Well, yeah, I totally am. And I struggle too, I struggle, like, I guess start with that, it's like, the same thing, probably any artist, I've got so many good songs inside of me. And, the things that light me up the most is running a workshop and playing live shows, and I just know I'm writing this best music. And then sometimes I go, there's so many goddamn bands out there, everybody and their mother, so I have my little moments, you know what I mean? I'm like, and then, so there you go. I'll go in and I'll be like, I'm the best, like there's this part of me that is not healed. It's like, I'm the best, you know what I mean? Anyways, and I come through and and that's just to get that out of the way. But yeah, I am having a great time. It's really fun. I'm learning to like Yogi just wrote this huge album, a long album, not huge, but we spent 2 months in the studio with all these cool people. And what I'm going to remember on my deathbed isn't like the album. I'm going to remember the experience of it. And like, I really was able to be present. We were in the studio. We had so much fun, challenged, and yeah. So yeah, it feels good, and like, it's also, when I first 20 years ago, when I started playing music, I was not the healthiest human. You know what I mean? So all these people that I'm kind of around now had to be around me when I was just a nightmare, and I was very out of control. And I wrote a lot of the music, so a lot of it relied on me to be there. And I was just so the really beautiful part is that I've kind of jumped more into, like, been more solid. It's like, man, I'm here, I'm present, I'm kicking ass. You can rely on me. I'm funny. I'm soft. I'm serious about stuff. You know what I mean? I'm just very present with it, and that feels really good too. To have the relationships with the band members and the people that's not so fucked up, drunk, and all that stuff.
Yeah. And also, do you find that your way of writing has changed? Do you think that your artistry has changed as a result?
100%. Like, just there's something to be said about you do heroin and cocaine and drink, and we use all those things to kind of shut down our mind. And there is something to be said about the 60s and Jimmy and all this amazing music written on drugs. It's like it's in the price they pay, right? They die, so I was one of the lucky ones. So, I still feel like, there's some magic back in the day with the drugs, like, whoa, like some stuff you can't really recapture. You know what I mean? It's like, but at the same time, I've found a new way to really write music where I've been, I hear the melodies in the plane flying by, or the bird chirping, or the guy's radio. It's like this weird, I'm like, whoa. And my fiance is, she's so sweet. She's like, uh-oh, having a download. I'm like, shit. And I just like, I'll just record the little clip of it. So I have like literally 500 clips in my phone of new songs. And but yeah, so then it's about pulling that off and then making that into the full song. And yeah, I feel old sometimes. I'm like, dang, man, I'm 46, like I judge myself, I go, man, if only I would have pulled to that. So those little things crop up, nothing to feel crazy about, but I find myself kind of doing that. And then I go, should I do something? It's just, typical shit. We judge ourselves. We think too much.
I think you think when you get to your, like, well, I'm 48, so you do think, oh, I'm going to be fine, but it does feel like you've just gone to Oz and the Wicked Witch just turned the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Oh, I've peed. Oh no, I'm gonna have to work on
dude, it's like low level bipolar. You know what I mean? I'm like, one day I'm like, look at what's up, let's play. The next day I'm like, I'm done. Everything's over. It's okay. It's the expansion and the contraction. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, just let it be, laugh at it, and
Definitely.
Don't try and soothe myself with some external thing like food or whatever, try my best,
And And with the kind of, you know, your work and the whole rock to recovery thing that you've been involved in, should we touch on just a little bit of, so say if I'm going to see Yogi now and there's a particular intention that has been set or something that you have been a conduit to when you're writing the music, are you now noticing things that as you're now sharing that music with other people? And we know that music affects atoms in years to come, like, and in the present, because it's all happening in the now, but how like molecular structures have changed and things happen when music's being played. But are you now like enjoying the fact that you have consciously done something, seen it come into manifestation, and now you're sharing it with all these people, and it's like actually,
Yeah. Dude, it's, yeah, like you just described so my fiance just trips out because she saw, I was just laying in, I'm gonna write a new album. And then I was like, and then I was watching Howard Stern show and my buddy was playing on Howard Stern. I was like, that's Isaiah. He was, and then she's like, what? I'm like, I'm gonna get him to play. I called him. He's like, we're not he's playing in the Black Crowes, like I said. He's like, we're not actually not touring for like 4 months, so I'll come and we'll do it. And then so we do this, and I'm like, I'm gonna do this song, and she just was like, I can't believe how you're manifesting this. And then Chris Christopherson, I don't know if you heard, but I wrote a song with Chris Christopherson, and it was the same thing. I was like, I'm gonna see if he'll sing one of our songs, and my fiance is like, by that point, she's like, you probably will. I don't even know what the fuck is happening for you. And then, anyways, he doesn't sing a song. I write a song for him and he sings it. And so we have this song, Chris Christopherson's last song he ever sang. And then I'm like, we're going to play a show and I'm going to get him to come to the show. We're going to sing him the song. Then he's going to come up on stage and he's going to sing Bobby McGee and we're going to video it. Because no one's going to believe that I wrote this song with him unless they see the video of it. And so now he shows up to the show and he's like not feeling well. And we're like, oh, we're so close. And then like right before we played his song, he got up and we got all the shots of him. Anyways, it feels like people are watching that and going, what the fuck? Like my bandmates and my friends, just like from when I was just talking about it and sending them phone recordings to like, dude, the album's done. We raised all this money to do it. We haven't even started the promo yet. So if you go to Spotify, we only have like 500 followers or something, but we're just going to start promoting it. But that, and then people are messaging me. They're like, man, this song really, I've been listening to this song on repeat and this song and this song. And that's something I kind of experienced even back in the day. For some reason, I think the lyrics that I wrote, for some reason or another, I was always very intentional with like the feeling behind the lyrics. So sometimes people are like, this song, they're telling me something that has nothing to do with. I'm like, okay, I'm glad that got you that way. Okay, it's nothing to do with that, but okay, cool. You know, I don't say anything, but I just go right on. It's great, you know. So it's magical.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Brandon. Absolutely loved it. So
thanks for having me.